Welcome to MMA30. My name's Jake. We are going to break down every UFC card for DFS, betting, and fighting to get you a perspective in 30 minutes or less. Brittany, how does that sound?
Sounds great. Let's do it.
Awesome. Well, since this is episode number one, we're going to introduce ourselves a little bit. Of course, my name is Jake. This is Brittany. And Brittany, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I have been doing martial arts for a really long time. I'm a 4th-degree black belt in Taekwondo and Hapkido. I was a national champion. I competed all over the place in Taekwondo, karate, a few other things. I trained MMA and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu when I lived in Vegas for a few years. And I can bring kind of a fighter and a coaching perspective to this. So, yeah.
Awesome. And I have known you for a long time, and I have seen you in action, so I can vouch for everything that you said, that you're badass. So that's why you are on this show. And a little bit about me, it's not going to be nearly as impressive as that was, but I've been doing DFS since like 2020. I've been doing it full time since 2021. I started during like the COVID series when it was like the only thing on to watch. I really focus on context selection for DFS, focus a lot on ownership and game theory. And so I'm going to just bring that to the table. As long as betting too, I'm also a successful bettor when it comes to UFC. So we're going to give you some of our best bets, DFS plays. Just most recently, because this is quite impressive, I won the DraftKings MMA World Championship. So it's one, there's only 100 tickets available for that. So I got 1 out of 100. So yeah, I think you should listen to what I say. I think I'm pretty good. But unless you have anything else to say, we'll get into the card.
Yeah, so hopefully together we can give you both sides.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm just going to give kind of like a little bit of overview of this card because I think it's really important. It's in Azerbaijan, which is obviously a different country than America. It's going to be early fights. So the fights are going to start at 9:20 here on the East Coast where I'm at. So it'd be obviously 6:20 on the West Coast. So something to remember for DFS is that it's going to lock really early. Also, get your bets in early. There are some live spots here in this card. So if you are up early enough, we're going to go over a couple live betting spots that make sense to do. The two other things I'm going to go into is also judging. We all know that the judging in the UFC has been absolutely horrible recently, and these judges are going to be from that area. So there's probably going to be a little bit of bias towards fighters for that area. So that is something to think about on the fights that are going to go, towards decisions. And then also the big thing, which Brittany's going to touch on a little bit, is going to be the travel aspect. Like, some guys coming from America, some guys coming from Brazil. I don't know how far that is, but I'm assuming it's not. It's like a flight. So like, what does that kind of do, travel wise for a fighter coming from another country to go, fight in a different country far away?
Yeah, so travel is a big thing. I mean, some of them are going to have long flights, long layovers. If they have to weigh in when they get there. I know I fought in Chile a while back, and I had to land and immediately go to weigh in, which was really rough because I was always struggling with the weight. So that can really make a difference on how they handle that and how they can recover, adapt to the time change, and be ready when the fight comes.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point. All right, so let's get into the main event here. This is going to be Fiziev versus Torres. And I'm just going to come out and say I like Fiziev for this fight. I really think he has fought the better competition, definitely the more technical striker, or, honestly, I think technical UFC fighter all around. For DraftKings, for DFS, I think this is basically a must target fight. You're going to want one side or the other. $8,200 for Fiziev and $8,000 for Torres. With those salaries, you can make a lot of other things work. So you got to have one of these sides. Again, I'm going to go with the Fiziev side. If you're going to be playing 150 lineups, which I never really suggest doing anyway, I wouldn't mind having, both guys. But if you're only playing a few lineups, single entry, small field stuff, I'm going to go with the Fiziev. If he survives round one, because we all know Torres is just knocking people out in round one. We don't really know what Torres does outside of round one in the UFC. So if Fiziev survives, round one, he can definitely rack up some points later on in the fight, whether it comes to a decision. I also think he does have upside for a finish in fight in like later rounds, maybe like 2 or 3. And we'll get into that a little bit when it comes to the live betting. So Brittany, like overall with these two fighters, what kind of, fighter perspective, stands out to you?
Yeah, I mean, mostly I agree with everything that you say. I do think Torres is dangerous early. He's finished a lot of fights in the first round, so we have to watch out for that. But if Fiziev can get through that, then I think he can pull it through.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah, I think we're right kind of in line on how this fight should go. Okay, so getting into one of my favorite DFS plays is going to be Almabayev, especially at the 8,900 price tag. So he's like right under the 9K guys. I think this is a really good matchup for him. I think Johnson really struggles against wrestlers, and we've seen that. He gets taken down a lot, and he does get back up on his feet, but he gets taken down again, right after. So I think the takedown upside, especially for DFS, is going to be here for Almabayev. I could see 100+ point ceiling in this fight, even if it just goes to a decision with the amount of takedowns that he could get, in this fight. So overall, a great play, especially under that, just right under that $9,000 salary. Brittany, what do you kind of think of this matchup?
Yeah, there's definitely like a very wrestling heavy game plan. And I do think it'll probably go to decision. But this is a great stylistic matchup for him. So it's going to be fun to watch.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. Okay, so another fight that I think we need to target is the Olaskarov. I'm sure I just butchered that, even though I tried to practice it 20 times. Versus Vieira fight. I think he has like 100-point upside again in this fight. Both these guys are super dangerous. They both have a ton of knockouts, so that power is there. But I think this is a great fight for like a GPP lineup, just because, I could see either guy getting finished, but my lean is going to be to the Olaskarov side. Brittany, what do you think about this fight?
Yeah, I think it's dangerous both ways. Both fighters have like a finishing upside, so I wouldn't be shocked either way that it goes.
Okay, so the next fight I want to talk about is the Olajaychuk fight. I really like this fight. I'm a big fan of Olajaychuk, especially the last couple fights, the last 3 fights, he's done really well. I think he's got 2 finishes in a decision that also scored really well on DraftKings. He fights out of the Fighting Nerds, which I still think is a great, fight camp to fight out of. Those guys have produced some really quality fighters. He's in like that middle salary at 7,900. So like technically underdog, but I consider that more of kind of like a middle salary. But I definitely think, this is a fight that you, want to target at that salary, especially with his finishing upside. Brittany, what do you think about this fight?
Yeah, it's easy. I pretty much agree with everything you said. He comes from a strong camp. He has the finishing upside, and I mean, I like him. I think it's going to be cool.
Awesome. Yeah. So we are on the same page on a lot of these fights as we knew we would be, going into this. And a couple other, like quick hitters, like I wanted to get to. I really like the Reyes fight, especially at 8,500. I think he's a great DFS play. I see finishing upside. In that fight. Ownership's going to be interesting on that. I was just kind of going to take a look here because I got ownership pulled up. So it's like, well, I don't actually have it for DraftKings yet, so I just lied. So I'm gonna do a little short later on today, and maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow morning before the fight start to kind of do some ownership. But I think Reyes is going to be in a good spot for like 100+ score at 8,500. If he gets that finish, you're definitely going to want him. And also this Donchenko, I don't know, guy, is another one that's going to be interesting because I know his salary's up there, but he's got that finishing upside that you might need. And there's a lot of name recognition on this card, like your Magomedovs and stuff like that people are going to automatically just sort of gravitate to because they know that name. So it is possible you could get a guy that has that high scoring potential and just doesn't have the name recognition. So his ownership's going to be a little bit lower. Another guy to mention is also going to be Gene Matsumoto, 8,400. Even in his losses, he averages over 80 points. So I think that's going to be another play. One thing for DFS I'd mention is I do see a lot of like the main event with like an Olajaychuk and like a Reyes and maybe a Mato, because you can kind of stay in that middle range of salary and punch a lot of guys in there. So you're going to want to think about that when making lineups, because I think a lot of people are going to be like, well, this guy's safe, he's lower salary. This guy's safe, he's lower salary. This guy's safe and he's lower salary. So you can get a lot of those guys in there and you kind of feel safe about that lineup. But if those guys aren't getting necessarily finishes, or, their decisions are going to be like 80 some points, and you have like the 9K guys that are going to get like, huge 100 plus, points, you're going to want some of those guys in there. So the last thing I want to say is I'm just staying away from the co-main event. I don't trust Piera. I don't like the way that he's looked. I know that Shara Margamedov is a good fighter, but, I don't think he really has the finishing upside in this fight against Piera. Piera's also been training with Sean Strickland. Strickland's been kind of trying to match what Shara, like how his fighting stance or how his fighting technique and stuff is and everything. So that's just the fight I'm going to stay away from as far as DFS on this card. So one of the favorite bets I have on this card is Yaev. I like this fight to finish in round 1. I also like this as a DFS play, depending on ownership. His salary 9,500. If he gets that first round finish with a knockdown, maybe even a quick win bonus, he could definitely pay off that salary. But I do like that as a bet for a first round finish. What do you think about this fight, Brittany?
Yeah, I think that he's the better fighter, and it's very likely going to be a submission or a KO. So it'll be nice to see which way it goes.
Awesome, definitely. And I also like the Fiziev fight for a bet too. I like him money line, depending on where the line is at. KO, depending on what you can get that. I've still seen on some books where you can still get a pretty good number on that. And then I also don't mind a little sprinkle on maybe like a round 2 or round 3 KO for Fiziev. If he does get out of that first round, again, we don't know what Torres is going to look like. And Fiziev is dangerous. He does, have that knockout power. So if you are up early enough to watch these fights and you do have a chance to, bet live, that Fiziev, depending on what the number is, what he looks like in round 2 and round 3, I would look at betting him money line or betting his KO, TKO live if you have that opportunity. Also, another guy, Pulaev, if he survives round 1, I kind of like him in the later rounds. So that might be another live betting angle for that. Brittany, you like the Fiziev finish lines too? I think we're on with that.
Like you've said, we pretty much agree on this card completely. So
awesome.
Okay, so what's your favorite DFS play?
I think Almabayev is my favorite play, especially at that salary with those 100-point, upside and takedowns.
Favorite DFS underdog?
I have a few here. I don't love a lot of the dogs on this card, but a few that I'm gonna have. I like Fiera for that finishing upside. I like Pulaev if he gets out of round 2, round 3. I think Olazechek, overall favorite underdog, but he's at 7,900, so not really an underdog. And then I think Nascimento also at 7,500. I like him as well. Favorite bet? Favorite bet is going to be the Almabayev bet, which we talked about earlier, along with Yaev finish bet, which we discussed as well. So I think a lot of this, it's really going to depend on ownership. I don't actually even have ownership out yet for this fight. It's a little different because, again, the fights are going to be, earlier than they normally would be. But I think you really want to pay attention to ownership. And if there's a lot of ownership on those mid-range guys, you're going to have to find out where to be different for DFS this week. Okay, and I think that's it for this card. I appreciate, everybody watching. Hopefully this gave you some insight on some DFS plays and some bets. We got in under our 30 minutes here, which is what we're trying to accomplish, even with our intros. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. So don't forget to like and subscribe and comment your favorite play or bet on this card.
Yeah, definitely. Please do. And then, so just a couple notes. Next week, there is no UFC because it's the July 4th holiday, but the following week is going to be the exciting Connor versus Holloway #2 I'm actually going to be in Vegas for that one. I'm not going to be going to the fights probably, but I will be in Vegas for that one. And I know you're excited about this fight, right?
Yeah, I've always been a big Connor fan. I went to one of his first fights and I was like, wow, who is this guy? I watched him jump up on the side of the octagon there, which was amazing. And of course, I mean, I have red hair, so it's a pretty easy choice for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that was a while ago. We actually looked this up before we started this stream. It was like 2013. So that was like a long time ago. So I mean, you've really been into martial arts and like UFC basically like your whole life. It's cool that you got to go, see that and experience it. So
Yeah, that year living in Vegas was really neat to watch a lot of the different fighters, train with some of them. I mean, it was a really wonderful time.
yeah, awesome. Well, again, I'm Jake. This is Brittany. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more. We'll be back for the Connor and Holloway fight too. See you guys later.
See you.